I stood in the lobby of what used to be my hotel, watching my husband hand the keys to her. 20 years of my blood, sweat, and tears, gone, in one signature. But baby, let me tell you something. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because what I built next? It made that hotel look like a roadside motel. If you've ever felt like someone stole your dreams, stick with me. And if this story speaks to you, hit that subscribe button. You're gonna want to see how this ends. Trust me. My name is Denise Thompson, and I'm about to tell you how I lost everything and gained myself. Let me take you back to where it all started. I was 22 years old, working 2 jobs, tired as hell, but in love. Bernard Thompson walked into the diner where I was waiting tables, and I swear I felt something shift in the universe. He was ambitious, charming, full of dreams about owning his own business one day. And when he talked about it, his eyes lit up like fireworks. I wanted to be part of that light. We got married 6 months later. People said we were rushing. My mama said I didn't know him well enough. But when you're young and in love, you think love is enough. You think loyalty is automatic. You think the person you build with will always remember who was there from the beginning. Bernard was in business school, so I worked. I mean, really worked. I was up at 5 in the morning, working the breakfast shift at the diner, then running to my evening job at a hotel front desk. I was exhausted every single day, but I told myself it was temporary. We were building something. I was helping him chase his dream, and soon it would be our dream. After he graduated, Bernard got a job at a corporate hotel chain. He learned the business inside and out. And me? I was still at that front desk, but now I was paying attention differently. I was learning about guest services, about what makes people come back, about the little touches that turn a good stay into a great one. I didn't know it then, but I was building my own expertise. 10 years into our marriage, we finally did it. We scraped together everything we had, took out loans, and bought a small, run-down property in Atlanta. It needed everything: new plumbing, new electrical, new everything. But we could see the potential. Bernard handled the business side and the finances. I handled operations, guest services, and the heart of the place. I was the one who chose the colors, who trained the staff, who remembered guest names and their favorite rooms. We called it the Magnolia House. And baby, we made that place shine. I'm talking boutique luxury with southern charm. Every detail was perfect because I made it perfect. I was there 7 days a week. Early mornings, late nights. I knew every corner of that building. I knew which floorboard creaked, which window stuck in the summer, which guests wanted extra pillows before they even asked. Bernard was proud of me. At least that's what he said. He'd brag to his friends about how I ran the tightest operation in the city, how our occupancy rate was always above 90%, how guests left 5-star reviews mentioning me by name. I felt seen. I felt valued. I felt like we were partners in every sense of the word. But somewhere around year 15, things started changing. Bernard started working late. He'd come home smelling different, acting distant. He started password protecting his phone. He'd get calls and step outside to answer them, and when I asked about it, he'd say I was being paranoid. He'd say I was stressed from work. He'd turn it around on me like I was the problem. Then we hired Veronica. She was 26, beautiful, and Bernard insisted we needed someone to help with marketing and guest relations. I didn't see it coming. I was too busy running the hotel, making sure every guest had the perfect experience. I was too busy being good at my job to notice my husband was falling for someone else. My friends tried to tell me. My sister pulled me aside at Thanksgiving and said, "Denise, are you really not seeing what's happening?" But I didn't want to see it. I'd invested too much. I'd given too much. I told myself they were wrong. I told myself Bernard loved me. I told myself we built this together and he'd never throw that away. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my world collapsed. I was looking for some paperwork in Bernard's office, and I found a folder I'd never seen before. Property transfer documents, legal papers with a lawyer's letterhead. My hands were shaking as I read through them. He was transferring the Magnolia House into his name only, removing me from the deed, and there was a meeting scheduled for the following week to finalize everything. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning. This was my hotel. I'd built this place from nothing. I'd chosen every paint color, hired every staff member, welcomed every guest, and he was taking it away from me. When Bernard came home that night, I was waiting for him with those papers on the kitchen table. I'll never forget the look on his face, not guilt, not shame, just annoyance that I'd found out before he was ready to tell me. He sat down like we were having a business meeting. He said, "Denise, this doesn't have to be difficult. The hotel is in my name. It's always been in my name. You have no legal claim to it." Just like that. Cold, calculated, like I was an employee he was firing, not his wife of 20 years. I asked him about Veronica. He didn't even try to deny it. He said he'd been unhappy for years. He said I was married to the hotel, not to him. He said Veronica understood him in ways I never did. And then he said the thing that broke me. He said, "You're a great manager, Denise. But this is business. And in business, you need to protect your assets." The divorce papers came 3 days later. He'd already had them drawn up, already had it all planned out. While I was making sure guests had fresh flowers in their rooms, he was planning how to take everything I'd built. I moved out that week. I took my clothes, my personal items, and my dignity. That was it. 20 years of my life, and I left with 3 suitcases and a broken heart. The legal battle was ugly. My lawyer said I had a case, but it was weak. The hotel deed was in Bernard's name. The business was structured under his corporation. I'd been so busy trusting him, so busy actually running the place, that I'd never protected myself legally. I'd signed papers without reading them. I'd believed that marriage meant we were on the same team. I lost. The judge said there wasn't enough evidence to prove I had an ownership stake. Bernard kept the hotel. Veronica moved into my office. And I was left with nothing but a small settlement that barely covered my lawyer fees. I moved into my mother's 1-bedroom apartment. I slept on her couch. I was 42 years old, starting over from scratch. Some days I couldn't even get out of bed. I'd built an entire business, and I had nothing to show for it. People who I thought were friends stopped calling. They chose Bernard's side because he had money and influence. I felt invisible. I felt stupid. I felt like I'd wasted my entire adult life. But my mama didn't let me stay in that dark place for long. One night I was sitting at her kitchen table at 3 a.m, crying into a cup of cold coffee. She sat down across from me, put her hand over mine, and said, "Baby, I need to tell you something." She told me about how my daddy left her when I was 5, how he took the car, the savings, everything, how she had to start over with 2 kids and no high school diploma. She told me she worked 3 jobs, went to night school, and eventually became a nurse. She said, "Denise, they can take your business, but they can't take your brain. They can take your property, but they can't take your knowledge. You know more about running a hotel than Bernard ever will. You know it because you lived it. You breathed it. You made it work. That knowledge is yours, and nobody can take that away." Something clicked in that moment. She was right. I had 20 years of expertise. I knew every vendor in the city. I knew what guests wanted before they asked. I knew how to create experiences that made people come back. I knew how to manage staff, handle crises, and turn a profit. All of that was still mine. I made a decision that night. I wasn't going to let this break me. I was going to use it to build something better, something that was truly mine. I started applying for jobs in the hospitality industry, not at the bottom, at the top. I applied for general manager positions, and I was honest in my interviews. I told them I'd built a successful boutique hotel from the ground up. I told them I'd been betrayed, but I'd learned valuable lessons. And you know what? People respected that honesty. I got a job as the general manager of a mid-size hotel downtown. The pay was decent, and I threw myself into the work. But this time, I was different. I was strategic. I lived frugally, saving every penny I could. I studied business law at night, learning everything I wished I'd known before. I took courses on property management, financial planning, and legal structures for small businesses. I was never going to be caught off guard again. I also started networking differently. I went to every industry event I could find. I reconnected with old vendors who remembered me from the Magnolia House. I reached out to guests who'd loved their stays and asked them what made their experiences special. I was building something even though I didn't own anything yet. I was building relationships, knowledge, and a reputation. 2 years passed. I had $15,000 saved. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every dollar was earned through sacrifice and discipline. Around that time, I reconnected with an old friend named Brenda Williams. We'd gone to high school together and she'd been following my story. She had $10,000 and a dream of doing something meaningful with her life. We met for coffee, and by the end of that conversation, we were partners. We pooled our money and bought a rundown bed and breakfast in Savannah. It was small, only 6 rooms, but it had good bones and even better potential. I did most of the renovations myself. I painted walls, refinished floors, and hung curtains. Brenda handled the marketing and the bookkeeping. We worked 16-hour days for 3 months straight. When we finally opened Thompson and Williams Boutique Inn, we had a clear vision. We wanted to create spaces that celebrated Black culture and Southern heritage. We featured art from local Black artists. We served soul food breakfasts made from my grandmother's recipes. We hired staff from the neighborhood and paid them fair wages. We created something authentic, something with heart. Word spread fast. Guests loved the personal touch, the cultural richness, the feeling of being welcomed into someone's home. We were fully booked within the first month. Within 6 months, we'd paid back our initial investment and started turning a real profit. That's when I knew we had something special. So we did it again. We bought a second property, then a third. Each one had its own personality, its own story. We created a brand called Legacy Stays, and our mission was simple: luxury accommodations that honor Black history and culture. Every property featured local artists, chefs, and craftspeople. We told stories through design. We created experiences that guests couldn't find anywhere else. The media started paying attention. We got written up in travel magazines. We were featured in articles about Black entrepreneurship and cultural tourism. I started getting invited to speak at conferences, to share my story of loss and resilience. And every time I told that story, I made sure to emphasize the lessons. Protect yourself legally, know your worth, and never let someone else control your destiny. 5 years after losing everything, I owned 12 boutique properties across the South. Our revenue hit $20 million annually. We employed over 200 people, most of them from communities that looked like mine. I was named Entrepreneur of the Year by a major business magazine. I was invited to mentor other women who wanted to start their own businesses. But the best part? The peace I felt. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into fuel. Every property I opened was proof that I didn't need Bernard. I never did. What I needed was the courage to bet on myself. Then came the night of the hospitality industry gala. It was a big event, black tie, everyone who was anyone in the business. I was there as a guest of honor, sitting at a table with other successful entrepreneurs. I was wearing a dress that cost more than my first month's rent at my mama's apartment. I felt good. I felt powerful. I felt like myself. And then I saw him across the room. Bernard. He looked older, tired. The confidence that used to radiate from him was gone. He was standing alone, holding a drink, looking at me. I could have ignored him. I could have turned away. But I didn't. I'd come too far to hide from my past. He walked over to my table, and when he spoke, his voice was different. Smaller. He said, "Denise, you look amazing. I've been following your success. It's incredible what you've built." I thanked him politely. I wasn't going to be rude. That's not who I am. He kept talking. He told me the Magnolia House was struggling. He said they were deep in debt, facing possible foreclosure. He said Veronica had left him 2 years ago for someone with more money. He said he'd made mistakes, that he regretted how things ended between us, and then he asked if I'd be willing to help him turn things around or maybe even buy him out. I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd taken everything from me, this man who'd made me feel worthless, this man who'd thought I was just a good manager, not a visionary, not a builder, not an owner. And I smiled, not a bitter smile, a genuine one, because I realized something in that moment. He'd actually done me a favor. I said, "Bernard, I learned something important when you took that hotel from me. You can't steal what truly belongs to someone. My success was never in that building. It was in here, and I pointed to my head, and here, and I pointed to my heart. You took a property. But I kept my purpose. I kept my knowledge. I kept my ability to create something meaningful, and that's why I'm standing here today, and you're asking me for help. I told him I couldn't help him, not because I was being petty, but because he needed to figure out his own path, just like I had to figure out mine. I wished him well, and I walked away. There was no satisfaction in his struggle, but there was peace in knowing that I'd built something he could never take from me. Something that was legally mine, strategically structured, and authentically built on my own terms. Here's what I want you to understand. When someone betrays you, when they take something you built, when they make you feel small, they're actually giving you a gift. They're showing you that you never needed them. They're pushing you toward something better, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. I had to lose everything to discover my real strength. I had to start over to build something truly mine. I had to feel that pain to develop the wisdom I needed to never let it happen again. If you're watching this and you're going through your own betrayal right now, I need you to hear me. This is not your ending. This is your beginning. That pain you're feeling, it's fuel. Use it. That anger, channel it into purpose. That fear, let it teach you to protect yourself better next time. Here are the 3 lessons that changed my life. First, always protect yourself legally. I don't care who you're in business with, even if it's your spouse, your best friend, or your family. Get everything in writing. Understand every document you sign. Hire your own lawyer. Protect your interests because nobody else will. Second, your value is not tied to any one person or thing. Bernard thought he was the business, but I was the one who made it work. I was the one with the knowledge, the relationships, and the expertise. Once I understood that I could do it again, better and on my own terms. Third, rock bottom is not an ending. It's a foundation. When you lose everything, you get to rebuild exactly what you want. No compromises, no settling, just pure intention and purpose. Some of the strongest buildings are built on the firmest foundations, and sometimes you need to tear everything down to build something that will last. Today, my company is worth $50 million. We're opening 5 new properties next year. We're creating jobs, celebrating culture, and changing lives. And it all started the day I lost everything. Bernard's hotel was foreclosed in 2023. I didn't celebrate when I heard. I just felt grateful that I learned my lessons when I did, and that I had the strength to start over. Listen, I know some of you watching this are going through your own version of my story right now. Maybe it's a business partner, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's someone you trusted with your dreams. I'm here to tell you that you're stronger than you know. You have knowledge that nobody can take. You have purpose that betrayal can't destroy, and you have a future that's bigger than your past. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, drop a comment and tell me your story, because I promise you, you're not alone. We're building our own empire here, one story at a time, and baby, we're just getting started. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It's building a life so beautiful, so successful, so authentically yours, that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant. That's real power. That's real success. And that's what I want for every single person watching this. You didn't lose. You were set free. Now go build your empire.